You're listening to a New York Islanders episode of the Jacob Valk Show. He's breaking down the team's latest goings-on as only he can. Follow him on Twitter at RealJacobValk. Here he is, Jacob Valk.
Islanders fans, welcome to my 2021 New York Islanders offseason preview here on the Jacob Valk Show. I am the Jacob Valk, and you're not. I like to start my off-season previews with a season recap. And I'll go really quickly. The Islanders looked good all throughout the regular season. Like, there was never a moment where I thought, you know what, they're going to fall out of the playoff race, forget about it. They're going to be playing golf in the middle of May. They were never insanely dominant. I mean, they had moments where they could have increased their playoff seeding, but they were never really able to seize those moments. They had some big losses to the Bruins late, some big losses to the Capitals late, some big losses to the Sabres late. But you never thought they were going to fall out of the playoffs. They were a good team in the regular season. Not great, but good. I'll take it. Because once you get into the playoffs, anything can happen. I said that I wanted the Islanders to face the Penguins in the playoffs. I didn't think the Islanders would beat the Penguins. I picked the Penguins, but think about it. Islanders Bruins, Islanders Capitals, Islanders Penguins. I thought the Islanders had a better chance of beating the Penguins than the Bruins and Capitals. I mean, it's funny. All three of the Islanders' playoff series, I got wrong. I picked the Penguins. Obviously, the Islanders won. I picked the Bruins. Obviously, the Islanders won. Then against the Lightning, I picked the Islanders. Obviously, the Lightning won. Just to go back to those series, though, Islanders-Penguins, I mean, my God. Talk about a tale of two teams. You've got the Islanders not playing well in Game 2, giving up key goal after key goal after key goal in Game 3. Finally, Ilya Sorokin comes in Game 4 and is the seminal reason why the Islanders won that series. Then Game 1 against the Bruins, the Islanders get destroyed. Varlamov comes back in. The Islanders win Game 2, narrowly lose Game 3. I still don't know how Brad Marchand got that puck to go in. They win Game 4, they win Game 5, and they win Game 6. Unbelievable. The New York Islanders won their division. The 4 divisions this year: North, East, Central, and West. The Islanders won it. They were in the Stanley Cup semifinals. They won their division's bracket. They won their division. The Lightning won their division, the Canadiens won their division, and the Golden Knights won their division. It's actually kind of interesting. I just realized this. No team that finished first in their division in the regular season made it to the Stanley Cup semifinals. How crazy is that? The Islanders go up against the Lightning in the Stanley Cup semifinals, a rematch from last year in Edmonton. Even though Game 7 ended about as heartbreakingly as it possibly can, that series provided some iconic moments. The Ryan Pulock save at the end of Game 4, the Anthony Beauvillier goal in overtime of Game 6, the last goal ever to be scored at the Coliseum, Islanders fans celebrating by throwing stuff on the ice. There were some iconic moments. This season was a success. The New York Islanders showed that they're a great team. It doesn't matter that they got blown out in Game 5. It doesn't matter that they got shut out in Game 7. This season was an unmitigated success. And if Lou Lamoriello does what's necessary to make this team better, they'll keep improving. The Islanders lost in 6 in the bubble. In the Stanley Cup semifinals, they lost in 7 this year. If that trend continues, that means that they're going to make the Stanley Cup finals next year. Open up UBS Arena with a cup run. How does that sound? And let me just say for the record that the Islanders would destroy the Canadiens in a 7-game series. It wouldn't even be close. That series would be over in like 5 games. The Islanders are leaps and bounds better than the Habs. Not even close. It came out that the Islanders are going to start next season on an extended road trip because UBS Arena won't be done in time for the start of the season. That's okay. I don't mind that. That's because of the pandemic. There's nothing that could be done about that. The Rangers had it happen to them when the Garden was being renovated. It happens. I'm not too upset about that. I mean, I'll tell you, I got a tour of UBS Arena. It looks impressive. I mean, it's incomplete right now. The ice isn't in. The Jumbotron isn't up. Not all the seats are in. But it looks really, really impressive. But I'll say this, I don't know if the Islanders can win a Stanley Cup with Jim Hiller as their power play coach. Someone needs to be held responsible for that Game 7 loss. It should be Hiller. The Islanders gave up a shorthanded goal in a Game 7, the only goal in that game. Fire the power play coach. The Islanders' power play against the Lightning was non-existent. Yeah, against the Penguins it was okay, and against the Bruins it was really good. But against the Lightning, it was terrible. You've got to hold someone responsible for that. And it should be the power play coach. The inept. The useless. The garbage. Jim Hiller. A Lou Lamoriello hire. That wasn't a Trotz move. Trotz had no experience with Jim Hiller until the Islanders. Why wouldn't you let Barry Trotz hire his own power play coach? Why wouldn't you let one of the best coaches, if not the best coach in the NHL, hire his own power play coach? I don't know who he'd want to bring in, but anyone's better than Jim Hiller. Hiller is nothing short of inept. He needs to go. Someone needs to be held responsible for what happened in Game 7. It's got to be Hiller. Now, the Islanders have another hurdle in front of them. Every team has this except Vegas, but it's something that's gonna really affect the Islanders because I think they're gonna lose someone very important. That's the expansion draft. If you'll recall, in Vegas's expansion draft, The Islanders traded a first, a second, and Jake Bischoff to the Golden Knights. So that way Vegas would take J.F. Berube. Because the 16-17 Islanders were so close to a Stanley Cup, right? Because the 17-18 Islanders were a juggernaut, right? Incredibly stupid trade. But before I get into the possibilities of making that type of a trade again, let's run through the guys who the Islanders are going to protect. The forwards are pretty obvious. Barzal, Lee, Nelson, Eberle, Bailey, Pajot, and Beauvillier. The goalie is Semyon Varlamov. Then when you get to defensemen, it gets a little tricky. Ryan Pulock and Adam Pelech are getting protected. There's no question about that. So it comes down to Nick Leddy or Scott Mayfield. Who do you want to keep, and who do you want Seattle to take? Because if you look at everyone else that the Kraken can take, none of them are as appealing as Leddy or Mayfield. For my money, I'd rather have Mayfield. He's younger, was much better in the playoffs, gives you more of a physical game. Also, Mayfield's contract is very reasonable. I've said this before, I'll say it again. Mayfield is due to make $1.45 million for the next 2 years. There's not a team in the league that wouldn't sign up for that. Leddy is due $5.5 million next year, and then he's a free agent. I'd much rather keep Scott Mayfield. I mean, I'll say this. That contract isn't incredibly unreasonable, but I feel like it is the kind of contract that would make you stop and think, wait a minute. Do I want to pay this guy $5.5 million and then have to give him another big contract next year? Or do I want a younger player? A guy like Kiefer Bellows or Otto Koivula, someone like that. I think it would make Ron Francis think, but I do think ultimately he'll take Leddy. There is always the possibility of another trade. You take Michael DeCall or Dmytro Timashov, someone like that, and we'll give you a first and a second. Maybe you can get out from under the Andrew Ladd contract. The Islanders got out from the Grabowski contract in a trade with Vegas. If they can get out from that, they can get out from Ladd. But the question that Lamoriello needs to answer is that worth it? Is it worth trading all that draft capital to keep Nick Leddy? You can make the argument that it is. I mean, I'll operate under the assumption that the Islanders are going to lose Leddy and they're not going to pull off that type of a trade, but it wouldn't surprise me if they did. I understand the logic of wanting to keep this band together. Back-to-back Stanley Cup semifinals appearances. You don't want to blow things up. It's going to be interesting to track. But now let's get to who the Islanders are going to get rid of. The first guy is Thomas Hickey. And you're going to need to buy him out. Lou Lamoriello re-signed Hickey to a big deal in his first free agency. It didn't work. Ever since signing that massive contract in 2018, Hickey only has 6 points. He's completely useless. By buying him out, the Islanders would save $1,666,666 this year. They really need it. They are in a terrible cap position. According to Puckpedia.com, at this very moment, the Islanders have $5,786,666 in cap room. Let's take Leddy's $5.5 million out, and let's take Boychuk's $6 million out, because he's going to be put on long-term injured reserve. Taking just those two guys out of the equation, the Islanders are going to have $16,786,666 in cap room. That's not a lot. I'll get into why it's not in a minute, but the Islanders are going to need that extra $1,666,666. I promise you. As for their pending free agents, they've got to let Braden Coburn, Michael DeCall, Andy Green, Kyle Palmieri, and Travis Zajac walk. Coburn barely played for the Islanders. He was just a depth defenseman who Lamoriello gave up nothing to get. That made sense. I had no problem with that, but you don't need to bring him back. Michael DeCall is one of the biggest busts in recent NHL draft history. The guy is completely useless. Leo Komarov has overtaken him on the depth chart. There are some people saying that the Islanders should move on from Komarov. I'm fine with Komarov on the third line. He has moments that make you want to kill him, but overall, he's solid defensively, good penalty killer, and Barry Trotz likes him. I'm fine with him on the third line. Andy Green was just a mentor for Noah Dobson. He did a good job with it. Dobson drastically improved his game in his second year. Was bad in the playoffs, but in the regular season he was much better. Outside of that, though, Green served no purpose for the Islanders. Only 5 points in 55 games. The Islanders can do a lot better than Andy Green. Palmieri and Zajac were traded for with the understanding that they would be rentals. Lou Lamoriello said at his end-of-season press conference that he wants to bring Palmieri back. I just don't see how it's possible. If you buy out Hickey, lose Leddy in the expansion draft, and put Boychuk on long-term injured reserve, you have $18,453,332. And I haven't even gotten to the players that the Islanders need to re-sign. You can't re-sign everyone that needs to be re-signed and sign the free agents that you need to sign while bringing Palmieri back. It's okay that he's just going to be a rental. You knew that for a while. Look, Palmieri had a great playoff run. 9 points in 19 games, had 7 goals. He was great, there's no question about that. Unfortunately, though, I think he's going to turn into a rental. And I'm really okay with that. And Travis Zajac was out of the lineup in some games. Really didn't impress me with the Islanders. Didn't do much in the regular season for him. Didn't do much in the playoffs for him. Let Zajac continue his career somewhere else. Maybe the Devils. That'd be interesting. You trade Zajac, then he re-signs with you? I could see Zajac doing that. I really could. So now let's get to the 4 players that the Islanders need to bring back. Those are Anthony Beauvillier, Casey Cizikas, Adam Pelech, and Ilya Sorokin. Beauvillier you need to bring back just because he scored the last goal at the Nassau Coliseum. I mean, that basically makes him an Islander for life. That and what Polak did at the end of Game 4. You have a hard time moving on from those guys after what they did. But if I'm looking past that, Beauvillier isn't a bad player. He's not great. He's a little bit of a disappointment. After his sophomore year where he scored 21 goals, you thought, whoa, him and Barzal are going to do really special things as the top two centers for the Islanders. Well, Barzal did his part, Beauvillier didn't. Beauvillier's topping out as the kind of guy who's going to give you 40 to 50 points in a season. But he's young. He's only 24. He's a homegrown Islander. That does mean something. The Islanders got him in one of the worst trades in NHL history. The Islanders traded Griffin Reinhart to the Edmonton Oilers for the 16th and 33rd overall picks in the 2015 draft. With the 16th pick, the Islanders took Barzal. And the Islanders used the 33rd overall pick along with the 72nd overall pick that they had anyway to move up 5 spots with the Lightning. So that way they could take Beauvillier. So Anthony Beauvillier, the guy who won Game 6 for the Islanders against the Lightning, was taken with a Lightning pick. How's that for irony? I don't think you would need to give Beauvillier a massive contract. I think 5 years, 20 mil is more than fair. That's 4 mil a year. I think that's more than fair for Beauvillier. Cizikas is going to be tough. He's a fan favorite. Obviously the center for one of the best fourth lines in all of hockey. But he's coming off a pretty big deal. 5 years, 16.75 mil. That's 3.35 mil a year. He would need to take a major discount to go back to the Islanders. Arthur Staple brought up the possibility of the Islanders doing with Cizikas what they did for Matt Martin, signing him to a long-term deal with a low AAV. I gotta say, I could see that happening. With the Islanders' cap situation the way it is, any way that you can lower the AAV on a guy who, in a perfect world, you would bring back, I'm all for it. Lamoriello said as much that he wants to bring Cizikas back. Big part of the energy that the Islanders have, good defensively. Let's say he matches Matt Martin. 1.5 mil for 3 years. Adam Pelech is obviously a top-line defenseman for the Islanders. Extremely underrated, Polak and Pelech. The Islanders are going to need to give him a sizable amount. Let's say 4.5 mil. Yeah, that's more than Beauvillier. You know why? Because Pelech's more important to the Islanders than Beauvillier. Some people may think that's an overpay. I don't think it is. I think Pelech is that important to what the Islanders do that you give him 4.5 mil. And Ilya Sorokin will keep being the 1B to Varley's 1A for the next 2 seasons. I mean, Sorokin can start, but him and Varley are going to be in a platoon. with Varley leading the platoon. You've got to keep Sorokin. It's not the greatest use of resources for a team in cap trouble to have 2 goalies making a lot of money, but you gotta do what you gotta do. I mean, one thing that I thought of was leaving Varlamov unprotected. Protecting a guy like Ken Appleby and have him be the 3rd-string goalie instead of Corey Schneider, who didn't play at all for the Islanders last year. Then again, neither did Appleby, but Appleby's younger. You'd keep Leddy. You'd give Sorokin the reins for being the clear-cut number 1 goalie. You could sign a backup for cheap. I thought about it, but I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think it's a bad idea. I just think that Lamoriello and Trotz like having 2 goalies. I mean, they had 2 goalies the year before with Varlamov and Greiss. Year before that, they had Lehner and Greiss. So let's bring Sorokin back, let's say for $3 million. I'll say this. Sorokin's an RFA. Usually teams don't like poaching other teams' RFAs. But it wouldn't surprise me if a team in desperate need of a goalie made a big offer for Sorokin. That's how talented he is. If you've been keeping score, you know that I've allocated $13 million to those 4 guys. So it's time to go bargain hunting. Realize you've got to keep some cap money available for mid-season acquisitions, call-ups, stuff like that. So yeah, the Islanders will be shopping in the clearance section for 2 left-handed defensemen. Realize, with no Leddy and Green, you need 2 lefty defensemen to come in and fill those voids. Is there a possibility that the Islanders could have some young gun fill one of those roles? The answer is yes, but I don't want a guy like Aho or Salo to be given that role. Let them take it from a veteran defenseman. The first guy who I want is Michael Del Zotto, former Ranger. He is a good player, has been around for a while. Last year for the Blue Jackets, he had 13 points in 53 games. He was a +5. I like the veteran presence that he brings, and he's shown a willingness to take cheap deals. I mean, I'll say this. A guy like Alex Goligoski is coming off a big deal that he signed with the Coyotes 5 years ago. He hasn't sniffed a Stanley Cup with them. He didn't sniff a Stanley Cup when he was with the Stars. He hasn't sniffed a Stanley Cup since 2009, when the Penguins beat the Red Wings in 7 games. But even then, Goligoski wasn't a big part of that team. He only played in 2 games in the playoffs that year. So he may say, you know what? I've made over $51 million playing hockey. It's time for me to go ring chasing. The Islanders could offer him a role in their top 4. Goligoski isn't getting any younger. He's going to be 36 in a month. So if he wants another cup, it may behoove him to sign with the Islanders. But I can't say definitively that that's going to happen, so I'll say that the Islanders should sign Del Zotto and Derek Forbort, a guy who was a first rounder in 2010. He was taken 15th overall. It really hasn't worked out. He's been good, but he hasn't been great. He's very durable, plays in every game, plays the game the right way, but wasn't worth the 15th overall pick. He'd fit the Islanders on their top 6, though. Forbort and Dobson, I could see that working. Dobson doesn't need a babysitter anymore. This will be his 3rd year in the NHL, so remove the training wheels. Sign a solid top 6 defenseman in Derek Forbort. Not great, but not bad. I'll go through the lines really quickly. The top line is Anders Lee, Matthew Barzal, and Jordan Eberle. Lee should be ready in time for training camp. The second line is Anthony Beauvillier, Brock Nelson, and Josh Bailey, the Killer Bees. The third line is Leo Komarov, J.G. Pageau, and Oliver Wahlstrom. Give that third line some time to produce. I promise you it will. After one bad game, don't make changes. Run with it for a little bit, and Pageau should be ready by training camp. The fourth line is obviously Matt Martin, Casey Cizikas, and Cal Clutterbuck. The defensemen are Adam Pelech and Ryan Pulock, Michael Del Zotto and Scott Mayfield, and Derek Forbort and Noah Dobson. The goalies are Semyon Varlamov and Ilya Sorokin. Let me say this. This team that I put together is very capable of opening up UBS Arena with a Stanley Cup. The New York Islanders are cup contenders. Make no mistake about that. Regular episodes of The Jacob Valk Show come your way every weekday afternoon, but not next week. I'll be on vacation. Until next time, I am Jacob Valk saying that I'm not emotionally suited for any occupation where you can be hailed as a success if you lose only 62 times in a year.